Welcome.
The Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community is a regulatory science initiative that aims to facilitate innovations in pathology, as well as advance safety and effectiveness evaluation. The PI Collaborative Community aims to harmonize approaches to speed delivery to patients through collaboration in the pre-competitive space. The PI-CC is open to all stakeholders, public or private, including but not limited to academia, industry, healthcare providers, patients, and advocacy groups. Meetings of this kind are an example of lawful activity under federal antitrust law, because the focus of the meeting is on government action or policy, including the industry's responses or positions taken with respect thereto. However, antitrust monitoring is needed for companies' own protection, since they are direct competitors meeting together. These meetings need to stay within protected subject matters and need to be monitored so that they do not stray off into inappropriate areas, such as pricing and price terms, sales and service territories for particular products, customers and customer territories, each company's individual decisions regarding selection of suppliers or customers, marketing plans and especially future marketing plans or new product offerings, other proprietary or competitively sensitive information. Today's meeting will follow the written agenda, and there will be no discussion of pricing or other prohibited topics. If the discussion veers into those topics, we will terminate the discussion. If you have any questions or concerns about the propriety of a discussion, please raise it immediately, and we will take a break to determine how best to proceed. The Medical Device Innovation Consortium acts as the formal convener, and we will follow their conflict of interest policy. For additional information, we defer to our Code of Conduct and our website, www.pathologyinnovationcc.org. We look forward to moving the field forward.
Welcome to the Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community Steering Committee meeting for September 2023. I hope you're all doing well. I know a couple of people emailed me that they will be arriving a bit late, but I wanted to get started on time as people are trickling in. And as always, we have different sections. So we start with a few FDA updates, and it's also amazing that we'll be joined by a few additional guests today, who I will hand it over to in a very little while. The first update is from the CBER or CBER, which is the Center for Biologic Evaluation and Research. And within that center, there's a lot of drug evaluation and research on real-world evidence going on. You see there was a recent update in early September. But one thing that I wanted to point out to this group here is that the final guidance document for considerations for the use of RWD data and RWE evidence is out. And one of the things which is a common question is, of course, how do you define these things? And that's the final guidance document that, for example, defines this, and of course, a lot more. But it's a fantastic resource, especially as we're trying to build up the case that there is representative data out there for what the real world pathology applications look like. So please take a look. Directly related to this, and I believe also extremely valuable to the field, is a resource that was just released maybe a week or 10 days ago. Actually 9/15, it says it here. It's called Digital Health Frequently Asked Questions, and it is coming from a combination of the Center for Devices and Radiologic Health, as well as the Digital Health Center of Excellence, which is DHCOE. And just to illustrate a few, these are the top 12 questions. So for example, is my product a software as a medical device, or is a pre-cert pilot still ongoing and can I participate? So these are probably some of the questions you may have asked yourself, also related to AI and ML enabled devices. So definitely a great resource and a anchoring point for many of the questions. To be honest, it reminded me a bit of Brandon's device advice page, but here, of course, more from a digital health perspective. So brand new and fantastic. Continuing, this slide is a bit out of order, but just in relation to real world data, there's a lot of guidances and representative publications from the FDA, and I just wanted to make a pointer here. So for the final version, this will be in correct order. So I will move this straight up here. Moving forward, as you know, a lot of the interest that got this community started was around data standardization. Here, our original 9 working groups and data standardization was purposefully put in the center. And through work around the DICOM standard done by David Clooney and also Marcus Herman and Mike Isaacs from this group, and then with the help of Brandon Gallis, some of these DICOM for digital pathology are now highlighted on digital pathology products. So first of all, it is recognized in the consensus standards for medical devices. You see here's the update from the end of last year, but this is now available online. I think Ola probably has the link, so she can paste that. And if you haven't seen that, please take a look. It also specifies exactly which NEMA and which version it is. And then second part is that there's some of the product codes directly related to this and included. So QKQ and QPN are the 2 tools or devices that are currently with their regulation number, both class 2 devices directly mapping to this standard, which is great. So you know, Brandon. Wonderful. 2 or 3 other things coming from the agency. Number 1 is a fairly great read on AI-enabled medical devices. This is not guidance or anything. This is a paper by 2 authors, I think a statistician and a physicist. And the work from DITSER, or the Division of Imaging, Diagnostic and Software Reliability. That's a mouthful, but the paper is actually really great by outlining a few AI cases and a few of the statistics challenges related to this. One other quick shout out, and I may turn it over briefly to Brandon, which is a recruitment request for pathologists to help truthing tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. Brandon, do you want to say a few words?
Well, first, Joe, I appreciate that you sent it to the whole membership, which we know is like more than 500 or 600 people. And just trying to spread the word. We need pathologists to participate. You know, it's hard to recruit pathologists when you have no money. But this is the flyer that has everything you need, and I'll make sure that a link goes in the chat too. Ula just put something there. But basically, I mean, it's the whole ball of wax. There's CME training, there's interactive training, and those are requirements before people, pathologists, get started on any annotations. And then the amount of annotations we need from people, you know, is totally dependent on their time and interest. But basically, we have organized the data collection into batches that are bite-sized, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how fast you are at this task. And so, you know, as little or as much as people are interested in is what we try and be understanding of people's time. And you know, this is part of an effort to create a data set to validate AI/ML, and really to demonstrate a program here at the FDA, the Medical Device Development Tool Program. Ultimately, that's my end goal. It might not happen, but I do want to keep this group involved in that process. So the proposals we make to the actual reviewers in the building next door to me to qualify who will review the data in the end to whether or not this is of regulatory use, and so that everyone can get an idea of what kind of descriptions and is required, and population information and scanning information is required of data sets to be used to validate AI/ML models.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I will need to post this. Quick
Joe,
update.
do you have that
Yeah.
link to the paper that we were talking about the other day? Because we do have a related paper
Yes. Let me just quickly find
about
it.
our proposal that we made a couple of years ago now, and the experience we had from the review process. You know, kind of summarized those experiences. It's not actually out there yet, but the DOI, the journal told us, is fixed, and that's where you'll find it, hopefully in the next day or two.
Perfect. No, that's a great pointer, and I think the link should work. I think Ola is
Not
much
quite yet,
faster with
but
it. Okay. Quick update from two things at the federal level. One thing for all the next generation sequencing experts here. The CLIAC, which is the advisory committee for the clinical laboratory improvement amendments, is here and had a summary report about some of the key elements. So the tasks of the work group you find here, and the summary report on that is out. So I thought that might be of interest to several of the next-gen sequencing fans on the call here. And then another point more at the local or state level, there was a law passed in Texas that is, I think it went into law in May, but it took a while, and someone emailed it, and I thought it matched what we had previously presented on that health benefit plans must cover evidence-backed biomarker tests used to diagnose, treat, and manage or monitor a member or a patient. So that's another state on that list. So if anyone's interested in working on potentially constructing a map of the various states that have now passed the biomarker law, I think that would be a great resource for local coverage determinations and or discussions with payers. A quick update from the European perspective. Last week we had another meeting that was hosted here in Boston from the Chan School of Public Health, and it was a continuation from a prior meeting in Berlin, now in Boston, tackling some of the challenges related to transatlantic data exchange. I know some of you have had issues related to this because on the European side there's the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, and in the US there's HIPAA. We had the German health minister as well as the Office of National Coordinator Miki Tripathi speak here. You see there's Ulla organizing the whole meeting in the background. And overall, there were about 50 people tackling some of these issues. As soon as the graphic recording and results are out, I will share this with the group. But there were very practical things starting from international informed consent all the way to best data sharing practices. So it should be I think, fairly a meaningful initiative related to this. And it was also great to see there were a lot of people traveling all the way from Germany. Switching gears, MDIC, our convener, the Medical Device Innovation Consortium, who couldn't make it on this call today because of a concurrent meeting, asked us to provide two brief updates. First of all, and this is the MXR 2023, which is the Medical Extended Reality conference. And I think this is happening October, so 24th and 25th. So we wanted to announce it here in September. The early bird registration has already ended, but we definitely wanted to share sort of the scope and vision here. And two of the featured speakers are from the Meta Reality Labs, Lucas Fernandez, and then from Microsoft, Michael O'Hara. So definitely a high-level conference tackling some of the medical extended reality topics here. And you see the individual dates and keynote lectures here. Professional society update. Not a lot this month, but one point that I wanted to definitely make, which is from our friends at the DPA, or Digital Pathology Association. They launched a survey which is trying to capture digital workflows for pathology cases. So you see here a brief description. So this is for assessing the safety and validity of digital path workflows for sign-out, So the question here is, if you're using this for a digital path workflow, the survey is open till Friday, October 6th. I think the link will be in the description and or on the website. You see here's a screenshot. It's actually fairly simple and concise survey. So it's not, it won't take a lot of time to fill it out, but I think it would be very meaningful. And I believe this went out to the whole DPA membership. And with this, we're of course disseminating it among the PyCC work group as well. And just a pointer that that's going on. Now, I'm speeding up because I want to leave ample time in the middle of this steering committee meeting to hand it over to Dr. Althea Lang. I think I see, yes, there you are. Hello. And maybe as a brief introduction, Althea speaks today on behalf of the FNIH, which is the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health. And I think because of the vision and the ability and all the work that FNIH has done, in particular with respect to the Biomarkers Consortium, it's an absolute pleasure of having you, Althea. And I turn it over to you, and I'm happy to run your slides.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lenners. I'm really thrilled to be here. I really appreciate the time getting in front of the PyCC. I really hope that there's a lot that we can do in this space. So I'll share a little bit about what we do at the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health, particularly within the Biomarkers Consortium. I happen to sit in our Cancer Steering Committee, so I'll come at it with that sort of lens, but of course, digital pathology has applications in other steering committees, and we have some work in there as well. So I'll try to leave plenty of time for questions at the end, and if you have anything that you'd like to bring up in the interim, please feel free to just jump in. Happy to talk through anything, and we're always happy to talk to you offline as well. And my contact information will be shared at the end as well. Thank you very much. So a little bit about the FNIH before I get started. Is that we are an organization separate from the National Institutes of Health. So we were founded by Congress in 1990 as a not-for-profit charitable organization. And we really exist to support the mission of the NIH as a separate organization. The way that we do this is by creating and leading alliances and public-private partnerships to advance biomedical discoveries and breakthroughs with a real emphasis on translational work and making a difference in patients' lives. The kinds of things that we do are putting together resources, helping to generate consensus and standards, particularly bringing together, a wide variety of organizations, and kind of create this sort of level playing field for everyone to collaborate together and to generate consensus and distribute that broadly. Importantly, everything that we do through the Foundation for the NIH is pre-competitive in nature. And one of our main goals is to get the work that we support out and in the community broadly used as quickly as possible. Next slide. Thank you. So just a little bit of numbers are shown here for some perspective. We've raised over $1.5 billion to date, and we're very proud that 89 cents of every dollar goes directly to supporting our programs, and we have 17 years of outstanding Charity Navigator rating. The FNIH has put together over 600 programs, and at any given time, we have about 125 active things that we're working on. So those are projects, education and training, sort of initiatives, conferences, and other kinds of programs that we support as well. Next slide. So outlined on the slide are the kinds of things that we do in the public-private partnerships that we put together through the FNIH. So we provide governance. So we tailor those to the kinds of partnerships that we're putting together. We also provide policy management. We bring together, academics, the NIH, the FDA, and a number of other different kinds of organizations. And sometimes those can be, competitors or people of different sizes, organizations of different sizes. So what we do is we have a uniform set of policies and create a safe harbor, a sort of level playing field for everyone to be able to come together and collaborate. And of course, everything that we do is aligned with the NIH's ethical and policy standards. We also provide program management and make sure that we're bringing consensus and driving consensus with all of our stakeholders and what we choose to do. We provide fundraising and relationship management. Importantly, we fundraise for all of our initiatives as they come. So we have no money to give to initiative. We have to fundraise for that. I just want to be really clear about that. And we are the managers of those funds, so we help to raise them and distribute them out to do the research. We also provide project management, and everything that we do is very structured. So we have go, no-go decisions and milestones set out from the beginning. So we're very clear about that as we put together a project plan. And we provide intellectual property management. Again, everything is pre-competitive. So we have policies that are negotiated and available online that apply to all the work that we do. Next slide. So we put together a number of different kinds of public-private partnerships, and there's a bit of a spectrum. On the one hand, we have initiatives that are entirely funded by public organizations. Sometimes the NIH, for example, will come and have an important mission that we help to put together public-private partnerships to do that work, and that'll be entirely funded by the public organizations. On the other end of things, like the Biomarkers Consortium, where I sit, the consortia will be funded entirely by private organizations. So it'll bring together, a variety of pharmaceutical companies and biotechs and that sort of thing to put together and fund an effort in that sort of space. And then in the middle, we have initiatives like our Accelerating Medicine Partnerships and LungMap that are funded by a mix of public and private dollars. Next slide. Thank you. And so here's just a little bit more information on a few of those partnerships, and you can see the relative sizes of these. And I won't go into them too much, just to say that we do much more than just the Biomarkers Consortium, and there may be some applications that people might be interested in here in those other places, and I'm happy to connect offline about those if of interest. Next slide. So now jumping into the Biomarkers Consortium. Next slide, please. So what we do in the Biomarkers Consortium is put together public-private partnerships to validate and qualify biomarkers and other drug development tools to accelerate better decision-making and to really advance the development of new drugs, new therapeutics. Importantly, the work that we do is focused on being more translational. This is about biomarker validation and qualification, not identification. So what we're really trying to focus on is on work where there is, some preliminary evidence and you need that additional backup to kind of lead to something that can make it into the clinic. Another sweet spot that we've had in the Biomarkers Consortium is in definition of standards and quality control materials, and particularly in digital pathology, this may be something that we could help with. So those are some areas where we've had a lot of focus within the Biomarkers Consortium, and kind of conceptually, that's where we're at. Next slide. So the driving principles are outlined here. As I mentioned, we're really focused on bridging that gap between, the fundamental research that's done, in an academic lab, and really getting that into the clinic and to advance drug development and make sure that, the work that's done early on actually makes it into the hands of clinicians. Again, everything that we do is pre-competitive. It's important that the results that come out of this work are made available to the community. So that's a really driving principle of the kind of work that we fund. And again, we bring together academics, government, and industry, and FDA plays a large role in all of this as we put together projects as well. Since the Biomarkers Consortium began in 2006, we've launched over 35 projects, and that's increasing every year. Next slide. Here, you can see a link to where you can find our principles and policies. You can see that they cover a number of topics, so they're outlined here. They're publicly available, and these policies are previously negotiated at a pretty high level. So these will govern any work that we do, and you can find those on our website. Next slide. In the over 15 years that we have been working through the Biomarkers Consortium, you can see some of our metaphorical feathers in the cap. There are over 14 therapeutics advanced based on the tools we've generated, a number of clinical tools used in drug development. Over 5 FDA guidance documents have been supported by this, and we have 1 qualified biomarker, composite biomarker that's come out of this work as well. And you can see we have a number of publications and citations, but that's a nice benefit of the work that we do, but that's not the goal. The goal is to get the results out. And we have over 60 member organizations that you can see on the next slide. Here you can see we have the full spectrum from, big pharma to patient advocacy organizations, to biotechs in there as well. We're always open to new members, so if you're interested in getting involved, we're always happy to connect with you offline and talk a little bit more about how you could get involved. Our working groups are open, so if this is something that's of interest to you, you can always kind of try to get in there and see if this is something that you'd like to be more involved with. Next slide. Thank you. So here is our governance structure in the Biomarkers Consortium. We have an executive committee that has membership from high levels of NIH. We have FDA, a lot of members from there as well, and CMS, some big players in industry, and also some members from our FNIH board. So that executive committee oversees the work that we do in 4 different steering committees in 4 therapeutic areas. I sit in cancer, but I have colleagues in inflammation and immunity, metabolic disorders, and in neuroscience. We have projects that will be put together in working groups that are commissioned by our different steering committees. And then between the working groups and the steering committee, that project will be developed. And there is oversight from the executive committee. And we go through a few rounds of feedback. And I have a slide that outlines this process a little bit more coming up. And the idea here is to really get the feedback at multiple points of development from these different perspectives. We want to make sure that, the academics and the NIH are having, their say in how we put together these projects, and also getting FDA involved early, and industry as well, of course. The point here is to really have all of those perspectives come together to help strengthen these projects, because we want them to actually be able to make a difference in how patients are treated and how we do our research. So we really want to make sure that we're really getting a lot of feedback as these projects develop and come together in this sort of iterative kind of process. Next slide. And thank you. And here's some additional information on the breakdown of our executive committee. As you can see, there's a lot of presence from the FDA and the NIH and from industry, as well as payers on there as well. Next slide. Here is the leadership of our 4 different steering committees. Each does things a little bit differently, but there is at least 1 co-chair from academia or NIH, and then 1 representing the public sector or private sector, apologies. Next slide. And here you can see the Cancer Steering Committee pipeline. So we have some working groups. We currently have 3, and all the steering committees have their own pipelines, but cancer is where I sit, so that's what I'm using to kind of talk through this. But we have different working groups that work on developing projects, and actually the Cancer Steering Committee is going through a strategic evaluation of the kinds of work that we want to do in the coming the next 2 to 5 years or so. And in that, actually, we've identified 4 areas of focus, and one of those is digital pathology. So we're working out whether to develop a new working group to focus on developing a project in digital pathology. And actually, Drs. Leonards and Gallus are helping us with developing a workshop at our upcoming CSE symposium in November to kind of talk through and inform what something in this space could look like. So there is a good probability that we'll be developing or trying to develop something in this area in the next few months. So if you'd like to be involved in, either the symposium or in any of our to be developed working groups to talk through this, we'd love to hear from you and love to see what you think about that. But so that's something that's coming up. Please feel free to reach out, and I can share that information offline as well. But so those working groups will develop concepts in areas that are identified as something that we should likely be doing as the Cancer Steering Committee based off of this strategic reevaluation that we've just done. And then that concept will go to the Cancer Steering Committee for review. Ultimately, that's likely who will be funding the work. So they'll give feedback at that stage. And the executive committee will also weigh in. We'll do a funding scan in between to see whether there's any likelihood of this work actually being funded. We don't want to put together a project if that's not likely to actually be able to get off the ground. And so that concept stage is intended to be a quick kind of skeleton of a project so that we get that quick answer on whether this is something that's a good fit. And then if the executive committee approves and it looks like the dollars are likely to be there, then we'll invite the team to build out a full project plan that's much more robust. And then that'll go before the Cancer Steering Committee and the executive committee again. And there'll be feedback, and we intend for additional organizations and partners to come on board to kind of make this, to build out a consortium. And then we'll launch the project. And that's how we operate in the Biomarkers Consortium. And so that's the last of my content slides. At the end is just some contacts. But with that, thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions or connect with anyone offline if any of this is of interest.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And, I know how busy you are and taking the time to meet with us. Let's open it up to the group for a few questions, and maybe, Brandon, we can also share a bit of what we had in mind potentially for that meeting in November, right? Maybe I start out here. Is that meeting typically open to the public, or by invite, or?
The virtual register, virtually anyone can join. If you are interested in joining in person, we have a little bit of space consideration to take into account. But if you're interested in joining us in person, let us know. We may be able to make that work out. Just feel free to reach out. But I'm happy to share the link to register virtually. We'll do a live stream. It's 2 days on November 14th and 15th. And anyone is welcome to watch it virtually.
Brandon, some comments?
Well, I'm pretty excited about this chance to speak to a group that, really tackles some big problems and creates some great data. So that's number one. Number two, the Friends of Cancer Research just finished a white paper with some proposals. So I think that's something I will bring to the steering committee to let them know about what that community, which is albeit a little bit slanted towards drug development, not and I'm coming from the Center for Devices, so there's two different perspectives there. But those proposals are definitely things I think are valuable, and hope to have a discussion about that. And then, at the end of our meeting this summer, we were brainstorming at the end of what could PICC do as a community that has a lot of different stakeholders of different that can contribute different things, right? Whether we're talking health providers, policy, patients, regulators, and things like that. And kind of where we ended up was try and be a little bit more deliberate on a couple of use cases to have a pipeline of that we could accrue data in continuous fashion, but to really focus on quality and the characteristics so that it could ultimately be used in a FDA submission. I think that's kind of been my mission in the project I talked about at the beginning of this hour. I really think that there's a marketplace out there that hasn't been created yet, where data providers create the data and model developers then use it for testing, maybe also for training. But as a regulator, I want to see data used for testing that is across the United States, very diverse, and from different health provider networks. So those are the sorts of things I'm hoping to champion in front of the steering committee, and Joe and I right now are vigorously trying to put together a program that will be exciting and interactive, and hopefully entice the members of FNIH.
Other questions to Althea from the group? Okay, thanks again for presenting, and we definitely be in touch as soon as we have designed sort of a session for November 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quick update from the patient advocacy branch. As Brendan just mentioned, yesterday was a public webinar. If you missed it, the full webinar recording is available. And I think I see Brittany, who organized also the white paper, online here. And here's a screenshot from backstage at 11:59. Oops, here. So, just before, exquisitely organized, and the white paper. I don't know if maybe Brittany, you can probably say something about the early feedback and some of the reception of the white paper and the webinar. Great seeing you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. As you alluded to, we really enjoyed having both Joe and Brendan as our panelists yesterday on the panel. We had over 1,300 registrants that received the white paper, but the white paper I see is linked in the chat as well if you haven't had a chance to read the work of the really awesome working group over really the last 6 or 9 months or so. And as Brandon noted, hopefully it's just a first step to continued work that we can do in this space. I think we had a little over 700 that attended live yesterday, and more that can watch later on YouTube, but really setting forward some proposals to help really support robust development as well as validation of digital and computational pathology tools. Specific in our white paper would have been towards oncology and specific to drug development and use in clinical trials, but hopefully some concepts that can also be applicable when and broader and a little bit more generalizable to other cases as well. We're currently scoping out a demonstration project that would help support some of these proposals that are in the white paper, and so we'll be stay tuned for updates and details on that.
Wonderful. Great to hear that, you're scoping out next steps already. I also I just pulled it up here, wanted to briefly also give a shout out to all the different people who contributed, and of course all under the leadership of Friends of Cancer Research, and big props to you, Brittany, for rallying these very diverse stakeholders together into writing something very coherent and highly informative. And 27 pages, highly condensed information, and great job, really. And I love it that there might be new steps coming up. Quickly, in the DEI corner, there's a book that people have recommended. This is from the Crisis Prevention Institute, or CPI. And this is a workplace violence prevention handbook for healthcare professionals. I thought that some of the outlines and chapter structures that were available are definitely of interest. It sounds a little bit violent, but it also includes a lot of the other stressors like, bullying, mobbing, and, microaggressions, etc., that are definitely of interest. We're moving on because I want to leave some time for discussion. There have been phenomenal papers and resources shared with us, and we selected a few, and then we have a couple of announcements to make at the end. But quickly going over these. One paper here, which is comparing 4 classifiers for X-ray, X-rays with ground truth labeling from the phenomenal number of 197,540 images. Why I think this paper is noteworthy is it was presented at RSNA, and it shows an approach to compare different classifiers, meaning it is basically something like an inter-observer variability study, but here for AI tools. And the way that it was presented, fairly concise abstract, and it's not a complicated read, but I think it summarized on an amazing data set and illustrates the value of having a large data set to compare, for example, performance metrics on. The second paper, same, but different, is comparing the clinical utility of liquid biopsies across 5 potential indications. And in this case, the indication was a combination of what type of cancer and then what to do with this. So for example, one clinical utility proposal was for therapy selection, one was for response to therapy, one was for disease surveillance, one was for identification, meaning screening, and suspected cancers. And then the table 2, which I thought was it looks simple, but it's actually very well thought out, is what are the harms, for example, of screening, and what the expected versus the actual effect on the individual is. I thought this was a very interesting take on the risk-benefit ratio in relation to potential harm when assessing clinical utility of some of these tests. Just a pointer, so definitely applicable to some of the various applications of digital pathology or other AI tools. There's a paper, some of the authors here are from the FDA, which came out and is trying to define rare conditions. As you know, there are orphan diseases, some people call extremely rare, and there are definitions for that. One interesting pointer here is that there's equal to 1 in 2,000 or 5 in 10,000, which is probably roughly speaking the same, but a different proportion. But some of these definitions that are mentioned in here might help you when defining, for example, molecular subsets of very common diseases, because they might actually go under this sort of prevalence range. A paper published in Nature Communications, I thought showed some of the complexity when it comes to defining, in this case, microbiota in the first year of life. You may have seen there's a couple of papers that define sort of like timelines for specific years. And I thought that this was a very well designed study where allergy evaluation many years later and very careful pre and post at a timeline samples were combined with metagenomics data to illustrate I think of a fairly interesting maturation of the gut microbiome, and the way to organize a study like this is absolutely astounding. So big props to the authors, and it's I think of interest for folks that are designing sort of trials and or studies in this level of complexity. This is a fairly concise, also in the radiology literature, paper that is trying to understand or outline how pragmatic natural language models can be. I thought it was a great read, so I wanted to make a quick pointer. And similar to that is this magnificent paper that I know many of you have probably seen already. There's some authors from the IEEE, and this is what happens if the data set that you use to continue learning or applying your model is drifting in terms of unforeseeable changes in the distribution of data. So you see there's, for example, 4 visualized drifts or concept drifts illustrated here, and how to deal with this and what to think about it. Definitely an important topic that I think many of us will tackle sooner or later. A quick pointer to a paper that I thought tied very well together with a concept that we recently tackled, and this is also from the radiology space. And the title I thought was very well fitting. It's called Non-Interpretive Uses of AI in Radiology. So the analogy is, if you think about pathology, there's tests, and the tests have procedures around them, and they're offered as services. And if you attach an AI model to these, you might actually have an AI model that affects the test or the testing procedure or the service layer. As a simple example would be a service AI tool that would help a clinician select which test to order. In contrast, is if AI is part of the actual diagnostic test or device, that might be completely different. So in radiology, the term non-interpretative uses is related to these 2 outer layers here in the healthcare ecosystem. And just briefly, just to point out, the the complexity of this, when you look at a care pathway, there's of course most errors happen in the pre-analytic space. And this is a relative importance here, but if you then attach an AI model to one layer, you may actually affect the performance in the other layer. Now, what I think this paper has beautifully outlined is that within the realm of non-interpretative uses in AI, there's one layer of image production and quality control, one about improving radiology workflows, that would be in pathology terms the procedural layer. Then there are business applications. So that's more on the underlying, for example, revenue cycle management. There are research applications, and there are ramifications of AI for radiology education. I thought this was a very great conceptual overview that not all AI is, detection of tumor or outlining something that's in the image, but that you can apply some of these technologies to a variety of tasks that might lead to similarly good or bad outcomes, depending on what you're looking for. And or predicting things that might actually have an easier way into clinical practice or improvement, for example, research, as I think all of you know. Quick pointer to a paper that I'm sure you've seen, Alpha Missense, which is a combination of structural context and evolutionary conservation to use some of these extremely efficient machine learning tools without explicitly training on some of these data sets. So just a quick pointer. And then as a next thing is we have our next steering committee on October 25th. And then it just came in today, just maybe 20 minutes before the meeting. And I want to give big props to Norman Zerby from Empire, that we have accomplished that we have a PICC and Empire joint meeting at the ASCP, so that's the American Society for Cytopathology, Clinical Pathology, and this is in Long Beach, California, October 18th to 20th. It will be a live session in Long Beach, Thursday, October 19th at 2:30, and the title is How Can You Contribute to Overcome Hurdles for Application of AI in Routine Clinical Care? And so the two groups coming together will present their individual perspectives. So Empire, we can put a link in the chat. I think it's an ecosystem between academia, public-private partnerships, and working on sort of the similar components that we're working on and carrying off. I think I think Ulla already has it. So the four, I think, quick issues that Empire really cares about and creates an ecosystem for it is, of course, standardization, profitability and billing, testing of algorithms and systems, legal issues, and studies, which is research. So those are sort of the 5 different branches, and we definitely align in some of the visions. So again, big props for Norman to get us to the ASCP meeting, so American Society of Clinical Pathology. And with that, I think I want to open this up for discussion, questions, and yeah, just saying hi. Maybe I can stop sharing now. Crickets. Well, I will share this slide deck because I moved around the slides quite a bit, just so we have the presented version online.
Joe, this is Doc. I wanted to say thanks to you and Ulla again for PICC and the drinking from the fire hose that you give us every time. The amount of information is just spectacular, and this is just such a welcome resource. I thank you for the time you take to do this. It really makes my life easier than having to go try to find all these things on my own. So thanks for making me smarter.
I don't know if that's possible, but thank you very much for participating. And it's this community that collects all these individual fragments or relics, and it's a lot of fun to put it together. And the team, Ulla, Brandon, Brittany, Altia today, you know, for contributing, of course, as well.
Yeah, you're kind of a hidden gem though, so somebody needed to say it.
Thank you, Doc. Okay, there are no other questions or concerns. Brandon, anything from your side? No?
No, except I might not be answering any emails on Monday.
Uh-oh. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, so sorry.
And it doesn't look good. I mean, every year we don't have a betting dashboard or anything, but this one would be doesn't look good. So yeah, so I am maybe gonna make a tea time to go golfing on Monday or Tuesday just in case. Cause yeah, all that stuff's supposed to stop.
Well, PyCC won't stop. You're always welcome here. Maybe for a virtual golf tournament, you know.
Maybe I'll actually get to do science instead of project management though, and answering all the emails. So, you know, take out my pencil and paper and do some math. They can't stop me from getting to GitHub.
Great last sentence. All right. I'll let you go. Fantastic having everyone. Great community. Love you all. Talk soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.